What's up, everybody? Jaxxsin here, and today I'm going to be doing a lot of spoilers for Red Dead Redemption 2, so if you have not played this game, I suggest you walk away, leave this video till later after you've played it, because that's exactly how I would suggest everyone play this game, is spoiler-free. Just sit down, learn everything yourself, ignore any outside anything, because you're going to be surprised by a lot of the stuff you're able to find in this game, and this story is very much more impactful if you're going into it without any knowledge of it in play. All right. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is the final act of Red Dead Redemption 2 and how I feel like it was by far the weakest. Now, let me explain something right out of the gate. I'm sure other people may have got something more out of this and could have enjoyed it much more than I did. Let me explain. I never played Red Dead Redemption, the first one, with John Marston's main character. So I had no idea what happened with Abigail. I had no idea what happened with Jack. And I was entering this final thing with Dutch on the run, Mike on the run, and John pissed off because Arthur basically had to sacrifice. I mean, Arthur was going to pass away anyway, but he definitely sacrificed himself to hold up Micah and Dutch so that John could get away. Because let's face it, they were going to gun him down. They were shooting at John and Arthur through the woods. They were marked as red enemy characters, just the same as all the posse and the bounty hunters and shit coming after you. So, let's be real. They would have killed him if not for Arthur, if Arthur hadn't held them up. So, I was entering this final act thinking that at some point Micah and or Dutch were going to come in and basically revenge John. And like, the further along this got, I kept expecting it, and it's like, it's just the most wah final to the ending after Arthur's peak, which I'll be going into in an entirely different video. But I think the game would have served itself much better if it had ended with Arthur. That's my opinion. This final act drags out, and it ruins Abigail's character for me. As someone who hadn't played the first one, I don't know if she's an awesome character in that or a whiny, bitchy baby in that, because that's what they made her in the final act. I really liked Abigail up until this point where John would do the right thing in the fucking right situation, and she would punish him with, like, acting hurt, just like guilt tripping the fuck out of him, and like just acting holier than thou towards him, and treating him like he's a giant pile of shit, up until including leaving him for an act of heroism that many men wouldn't have been able to pull off. And with that in mind, I'm going to jump into it. So it started off pretty good. She was kind of cajoling him. You didn't understand what he had done, but that it was obvious that someone had gotten killed and he had done the killing. And he says, well, it seemed to me like he needed killing. So you don't exactly know it. At this point, you're not really annoyed as fuck with Abigail quite yet. But she's giving him shit. We need to stay in one place. All of this. So John goes to Strawberry, hears about a ranch that needs a delivery from the local general store. You deliver those goods, only to find out that this rancher and his ranch hand, like the top guy, the foreman of the ranch, they're being harassed by this outlaw gang. And John steps in like a boss, handles the situation, delivers the goods, gets a job at this ranch, including living quarters for him, his wife, and his kid, which is a very big exception made on the part of this rancher, because they repeatedly say, we don't normally take on hands who have a wife. We definitely don't take on hands that have a wife and a kid. Like, because that's more mouths to feed. And he's like, we'll all work. We'll work our heart out. Like, it'll be, I promise you, you won't regret it. But mainly due to the fact that John had muscled out these outlaws that were trying to steal this delivery of this man's goods that he paid for. Because of that, that's mainly what got him, Abigail, and Jack a home, a job that will give food, and with the potential to save up. And there's plans. Well, it's not really plans, but Abigail mentioned she wants to buy a ranch property that's been in the paper as it's been foreclosed upon or something of that nature. So that's in John's mind, and John's thinking, all right, we'll work here, I'll get this going, and blah, blah, blah. The next instance that occurs is you take Jack to town. And let me say that outside of like these missions that I'm going to be talking about, there's not a whole lot of action. At one point, you're really scooping up pig shit and cow shit as John Marston. And like you're building a fence as John Marston. And these are very awesome things that didn't feel frustrating to me or annoying until I saw the conclusion of everything. That's when I was like, wow, what the fuck was all the point of this? I felt like there was this peaceful thing going on where they wanted to get the player into a lull. And then they were going to have this big moment. And like I said, I hadn't played the first game, so I was unaware that Jack and Abigail survived. They wanted to lull the player into this emotional calm and then hit him with that revenge shit. Because that's like Western to me. There's usually always some sort of tragic, like, forgive the fucking comparison, but Bruce Wayne like tragedy that equals out to the hero or the outlaw or something like that. There's a lot of tragedy in Western stories and movies and, from what I've heard, everything. Because let's face it was a fucking tragic time. So it makes sense. People were dying from all sorts of shit. And so that's what I thought the story was doing. So while I was playing through these, I kind of got a kick out of them. I kind of liked them. But during the course of all of these missions, I felt like it was going to do that. Much the same way it did with Arthur. Much the same way Arthur's had kind of led me into this, like, really caring for this man, and then finally just like, boom. But the next big thing happens when you go to town with Jack to fetch some more supplies for the rancher. And when you get there, I think his name was Geddes, but he was a cool character. He was a philanderer. His wife was like also a philanderer, came on to John. Like most of this stuff I was enjoying. On your way back from town, you get noticed in town. Oh, you know what it was? Oh my God. Okay, so John's an idiot. Abigail tells him before he leaves, he's going under an assumed name because at this point John Marston is wanted by the law for the train robbery, the fucking all the shit that they did. He's tied up with Dutch and that whole crew still, and Arthur and that whole crew still, and all the crimes that they did. He himself had escaped. Arthur helped him escape previously during Arthur's side of the story. And so, like, he's wanted, man. So he's going under an assumed name. I can't quite remember it. So is Abigail. And he goes, or no, Abigail isn't. So he goes to the post office to pick up a package for her. And before he leaves, she says to him, this is like her fault, dude. She says in a very weird way, ask for it for your name and then ask for my name. I can't remember which one I put. So he goes to town to pick up it's a shirt. It ends up being a shirt for him. But he goes there to pick up this shirt, and he asked for it from John Marston's name, and immediately someone in the back corner of the post office walks out all like, holy shit, like recognizes him, clearly a bounty hunter, clearly someone who works in the right circles to hear that name and understand what it means, that it's a paycheck, not just, a random stranger's name. So he goes out, gets his buddies, they kind of follow you and Jack home. Well, John, being an idiot, gives him his name first. He gives him his assumed name, and then he gives him his real name before he tries her name. How about you just start with her name, John? It was things like this that repeatedly kept happening where the logic of the character was impaired in a way where it felt untrue to not only the character, like, I don't think John's that stupid that he would try his assumed name, then his real name that he knows is wanted, and then Abigail's name. I think John's smart enough to ask for Abigail's package first and her name first. That's just me. And another with Abigail, like, so he's on his way home with Jack and you get attacked by bounty hunters. You hold them off, you fend them off, you get Jack out of there, you save your son pretty much and yourself because these guys are going to gun you down and take your body in for a reward. So you gun them down, you save yourself, you save Jack, you go all the way home. You're doing nothing, by the way, except picking up a package for her. Admittedly, John was a fucking idiot and asked for it to be delivered to his real name, like thinking Abigail's that dumb. And so, get home, he tells Abigail about it. That's the first little thing that she blows up about. And I think either she leaves at that point or she leaves after he saves the ranch. I'm not sure. But let's just talk about this. She cajoles him because Mr. Geddes, it turns out that those outlaws that were trying to shake down the rancher, they worked for a rival rancher and they were doing it on purpose to hurt Mr. Geddes' business. You as Arthur are now dependent upon Mr. Geddes and his business in order for you and your wife and your son's survival. His livelihood is now your livelihood as well. So one night, all of them fucking outlaws and the ranch hands that work for this rival rancher, they come into your place, they take all of Mr. Getty's cattle and they run them back to their house, and he just leaves them with no cattle. Like, he basically just cut the legs out from under any hope this guy had of making a living as a rancher. It's kind of imperative that you have cattle. And so John, being the man he is, says, let's go get him. We need help. Let's go get him. And the other guys are down. They're like, let's do it. Because they understand, too, that their livelihood just got taken. This life that they have, this shelter that they have, this job that they have that's giving them money, food, and survival is dependent upon those cattle that were just stolen by this rustler. And so you mount up, you grab your shit, and the whole time Abigail's just yelling at you. I'm like, this isn't, you're not a hero, John. Just basically bitching your ear off. And so you're like, look, I gotta go. This, and like, no person, no wife, I believe no wife that is in the position of Abigail that has the relationship with John that she has would be like, you can't help them get the cat, because like, Abigail's smart enough to understand that this is survival for her and her son. Like, they had just been kneecapped. They needed to go back, get their cattle back from Mr. Getty's in order to continue towards this goal of becoming a rancher and owning your own land. So John heads out, goes, you do this mission where you get the cattle back, you come back, and she's like, meh, 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 and then she leaves. She leaves him. So what does John do? John saves up all of his money. He talks to Mr. Getty's and asks him if he knows anyone at the bank who could give him a loan. Mr. Getty's points him to either his in-law or his cousin that works at the bank in Blackwater. You go there, and thanks to Mr. Getty's, thanks to the rancher who owes you his livelihood and is probably the only reason he's willing to do this, he puts his reputation on the line for John with the bank, so the bank will give John the loan and the funds he needs to not only purchase the property that Abigail wanted, that Jack had read her in the newspaper clipping. Not only is he able to do that, he's able to build a house, build a farm, and all this stuff because he runs into Uncle and Charles, who have been on the lam and on the run as well since all the stuff that happened at the end, the culmination of Arthur's Point. And so there's a bunch of other things happen. Sadie ends up being the shining moment of the final act of the game, in my opinion. Sadie, Charles. Uncle was pretty all right, but Uncle is just kind of Uncle. But Charles was very cool. There was the stuff involving Uncle's kidnapping where Charles comes with you and you help him take out these Skinner guys. That was a very cool mission. I love Charles. I liked most of the gang's members. To see any of them would have been awesome again. And I don't think you needed any more than Charles. I don't think having more of the gang show up, or Charles, Sadie, and Uncle, I don't think you needed anybody more than that. I don't think it would have helped the game at all, or this act at all, feel better. It was this simple monotony of building the ranch, and there's like a cutscene with a song, and it's very good. Don't let me try to, now that I've been past the end of the game, tell you that I wasn't like into these scenes. I thought they were very cool. My problem came later when it just ended with you marrying Abigail, everything's all right. And, you know, I didn't like the way that Micah's story ended. So Sadie was the shining moment, and you meet her up with her in Blackwater, and you start doing bounties with her again, because now Sadie's a bounty hunter. She's like kind of gone the straight and narrow, but she's still super violent because of all the horrible shit that happened to her and like the loss of her husband earlier in the game. And you hit this point with her that she's like, I know where Mike is. I thought about talking to you about it, but you know, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of leaves this open thing that like he's somewhere she kind of knows. And John says, well, if you go after him, let me know, because I want to come with you. Like, that needs to happen. That's honor for Arthur, dude. And so she gets in contact with him and says, we're going up, you know, this is where they're at. You go up there, it's a run and gun encounter. You just shoot a bunch of people, move up the mountain, shoot a bunch of people, move up the mountain. It culminates with sort of a kind of Mexican standoff at the end between John and Sadie gets stabbed by Micah. Micah is the worst. He was such a good character, but I think they could have played him down a little bit on the sociopathic side, because like I knew right away just when that initial, and that was I kind of wanted Sadie to get him, But there was when you first met Sadie, it was in a house where her family, her husband had been murdered, and the O'Driscolls had kind of set up shop. The O'Driscolls being a rival outlaw gang, and when they locate her, it's after they had gunned down all the O'Driscolls staying there, and you come into the house and see Micah sort of chasing her around a table, and his mannerisms there, the way he acted. From that moment on, I knew that that was the bad guy. I just had this feeling like that guy's the bad guy, and that proved true through the whole thing. I think they could have played that off a little bit and tried to get a little bit more of a surprise there. I'm not gonna lie, I was very surprised when Dutch shot Micah and kind of just left. It seemed out of character for him. He didn't take any of the gold as far as I know, unless he had some on his person. But he just like, what was he doing there? Meeting with Micah, obviously he was hoping to get some of the cut of the money or something of that nature. And what was he doing there? And then why was he immediately then just turned on Micah, let John and Sadie go, and Charles go, and then just bail? Like, I don't understand it. So, the culmination of this, and then just seeing that there wasn't going to be this revenge moment, and like, Abigail had just been turned into this kind of sort of nonsensical, hysterical woman, you know, like the nagging wife, where repeatedly, even when he says, like, I'm going after her, like, above all, she should understand, because if it wasn't for Arthur, her and John would be nothing, because Arthur saved John, not once, but twice. And if it wasn't for Sadie as well, and Sadie helped Arthur break John out of jail, so he owes it to Sadie if she's going to be there with her. Because if that's the difference between her life ending and her life continuing, John being there, he owes her that. He owes Arthur that. He owes Arthur revenge on this guy who turned him around and fucked up the whole gang and brought about the downfall of like the family environment that this gang had had before Micah started being a fucking rat-tongued motherfucker whispering into Dutch's ear, turning on them and getting the Pinkertons on their trail. Like, she would understand this. And that's why I felt that the final act of the game, on retrospection, like Guarma, which I felt was very weak, I felt like the final act of the game was easily the weakest act of the game. And I haven't played Red Dead Redemption. It's on my list. I have the PS3 here now. My buddy Camus let me borrow it. So I have the PS3 here now. And it's going... I wanted to do this video before I played it. But I'm just going to say that I hope that it kind of makes that final act better. Because right now, as far as it stands, the final act of the game was just the weakest. And that's why I wanted to make this video. Get my opinion about it out there. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below what you guys thought. You know, the 100 or so of you that are going to see this video that's been buried on YouTube due to the flood of Red Dead Redemption Online shit. Let me know below what you thought if you played it. If you haven't played it, what the fuck are you doing? You shouldn't be watching this. You know, wait until you play it. I'm going to fucking bad. I'm just kidding. Fucking love you guys. Till next time, stay awesome, stay safe, and as always, keep kicking ass.